Welcome to another team selection video in UCL Fantasy. I'm going to be talking about my transfer plans heading into Matchday 8. I'm not quite sure where to go. I know the position I need to improve in, but it requires a downgrade elsewhere. So tune in for the rest of the video to find out what it is that I'm going to do and also how I did in Matchday 7. So let's get straight into it. In the first leg of the round of 16, I scored 79 points and actually got a very small red arrow. I was around 1,800 anyway. And I'm still around the same, but I think I went down just a few places. So it shows how tight the competition is, especially in the kind of top rank. So I'm very happy with where I am. At one point I was around 500 and I want to get back to that if possible. But so long as I can improve on the overall rank from last season, I'd be relatively happy with that, and then I can learn and do more things next season. But yeah, in Matchday 7 I was quite happy with the majority of my players, and unlike maybe most people who switched to captaincy from a City player such as Mahrez to Lewandowski and Salah, I was very tempted by that, but in the end I stuck with my guns and stuck with Mahrez because 11 points is still a really hefty return, and no matter how good you are, even if you're Salah or Lewandowski, you're not guaranteed to match that points total every single match day. Lewandowski ended up blanking, so as you can see he was substituted off in the end. Same with Leroy Sané. I was very surprised with Bayern Munich there, but I've been saying this for quite a while. Bayern Munich haven't been that impressive this season. Offensively they have been, but in terms of their defence they are quite susceptible, and it took a last minute goal by Coman to equalise and get them back into the tie. But I was very surprised to see Lewandowski and Sané blank. Not that surprised to see Bayern's clean sheet wiped out, so maybe going for Ulrich and Süle was a mistake. But at the weekend actually, in Bayern's 1-1 draw against Bayer Leverkusen, Süle scored the goal, and I was actually thinking of moving him on in order to facilitate the Mendy move, but I'll show you that very soon. I was happy with the rest of my defence. Trent, Cancelo, Rudiger and Laporte all notching returns. I was quite surprised about City keeping a clean sheet and winning that easily in Portugal. They've got a pretty poor record there, which I talked about in the deadline stream, but they were by far the better team, and for me right now, City are probably the best team in the world alongside Liverpool, so they're two of the favourites to win the Champions League, and still very surprised about that result, but I'll take it nonetheless because I made quite a few late changes and I brought in Laporte and Mahrez. Before that I only had Cancelo, so I'll take that. And now with Diaz out between 4 to 6 weeks, Laporte should be very nailed because he's the only left-footed centre-back they have, as Ake is also injured, so Laporte should be nailed to start even in the Champions League, which you would expect a bit of rotation for City, which I am concerned about. But at the back, there's also Cancelo. I think he should also be quite nailed on to start, especially with Walker having some issues. So I like this defence overall. Süle's the only one that could possibly change, but I also like his ability to get ball recoveries. As for Trent, he is very expensive, but definitely worth that price, even over Robertson because he does get more ball recoveries, but both are great choices, and I'm very happy to have this defence. Reece James is now back in the equation and he showed his class in FPL. He's someone I'm also looking to go for, but really what I'm actually seeking is a downgrade somewhere in order to get Mendy in goal, because you look at these two goalkeepers, both of them failed to keep a clean sheet. I brought in Pasveer in the last day just in case he could get something and outscore Ulrich. It wasn't even meant to be. He got 2 points, Ulrich got 3 due to the amount of saves he makes. But I think I don't have a set and forget keeper. Ulrich is only there for 4 to 6 weeks until Neuer comes back from injury. Pasveer is more of a long-term option, but at the same time, Ajax aren't that great defensively in the Champions League, so there are a few problems there. As for the midfield, apart from Alvarez, who's pure bench fodder, very happy with the rest. Yes, Leroy Sané blanked, but he's still one of the best options throughout the whole season. In recent weeks, and maybe in the last month or two, he hasn't been as consistent as he was in the earlier part of this season, but he still has that ability to change the game, and I expect him to do something in the second leg. Salah is Salah, I don't think we need to talk about him, and I'm quite happy to keep him right now. I'm a bit surprised about De Bruyne because he's still been doing well in the Champions League, but not anywhere near as good as last season, where he was probably the best Champions League midfielder alongside Foden and a few others. And you have so many choices right now. Bernardo Silva got a 19-point return, so it does show that with these City midfielders, Foden, Mahrez, Bernardo Silva, Sterling, De Bruyne, you have plenty of options. I'm happy with Mahrez right now. He tends to be more nailed in the Champions League, and because he isn't playing in the Premier League, let's wait and see if he plays in the Manchester derby today, but I think he should be quite nailed on in the Champions League despite that 5-0 victory in the first leg. And Danjuma, a bit disappointing that he blanked in the first game, but I still expect him to do something potentially in the second, especially if Villarreal are well set up and up for it. And I just look around that price point, I'm not a big fan of any of the midfielders from 7 million or under, or at least anywhere near to the extent I am happy with in terms of Danjuma. As for the free forwards, I would have loved to have Mbappe, but it doesn't really make sense for me to have him as well, because I wouldn't really get rid of Lewandowski for Mbappe right now. And PSG still have a chance of being eliminated, and they just lost to Nice, and they're such an inconsistent team. They also lost to Nantes, I think a week or two ago. So PSG are very unreliable, but Mbappe is the one who is just performing week in, week out, getting the goals and assists. So I was always in a bit of two minds whether I go for him or Vlahovic. But that Vlahovic move, and he did score, it enabled me to go for Mahrez in midfield, so I don't really regret it. And Vlahovic scored in pretty much 1 minute or 2 minutes into his debut, so he is a really good goal scorer, and he could carry Juventus in some of these games where they struggle, and they didn't really have that natural goal scorer before when Ronaldo left. Haller scored an own goal, but then 3 or 5 minutes later, something like that, he scored himself to make amends. So overall, I'm very happy with my team. Alvarez is a bit of a weakness, but he's just pure bench fodder anyway. And you could say maybe one of my defenders like Sula, and going for someone cheaper or even another Chelsea defender would be very good. But the way I see it, this team needs a goalkeeper, and that's another thing that I would have had before getting Mahrez in midfield. So there's so many things to think about, but happy with this team, happy with my rank right now, but I want to push on even more and work on these weaknesses. In the UCL Fantasy knockout stages, you can't carry transfers over like you could in the group stages. So we have 3 transfers right now, then we'll have 5 heading into the quarterfinals in Matchday 9, but right now we have 3. You can't just maybe do 2 transfers, save the other one, and then have 6 in the next round. You can't do that. So I do want to use all of these free transfers available to me, but there's only 2 that I'm quite sure of, and even then I have some doubts, and I'll be talking about that later on. But in terms of the captaincy, remember, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but some people aren't aware you can captain players on different days. So right now Lewandowski will be my captain on the first day, on the 8th of March. Then on the 9th I could go for a City player like Mahrez, Laporte, Cancelo, etc. And the good thing right now is that we have the lineups pretty much for all of the games, and before the Matchday 8 deadline we're going to have the lineups for Bayern Munich, which is going to be very handy, and also Liverpool, so that will play a big part. But every single day you can see who's starting, so you can take a punt on someone like Mahrez in case he starts. So right now I think Lewandowski will be my captain in this game. I wouldn't be probably deviating too much, even though I have the Salah option. Then on the 9th of March, I'd probably go for someone like Mahrez, but it depends on the lineup. And then the following week, it gets a bit trickier, but I think on the 15th, I would go for Sebastian Haller, and on the 16th, possibly Vlahovic. But there is always the case of if I bring in someone like Reece James or someone like that, I could always end up captaining them. But once you have that kind of captaincy secured, maybe 9+ points, you don't really have to switch it. Anything else is a bonus. But the way I see it, if your captaincy horse, your first captain on the first day, if he does very well, so let's say he gets 8 points, you could still change the captaincy and be bold. But once you're approaching the final day or two in the actual round, that's where you have to be a bit more cautious and just take what you have, in my opinion. So even 8 points, you know what, that's a decent captaincy. Stick it like that. I had Mahrez captain on the first day with 11 points. I decided to stick on it, and it was maybe risky in a way, but it ended up paying off. But other times it won't be. I always mention this example, but last season, remember when that PSG versus Istanbul Basaksehir game was suspended and played on a separate day? I actually had Immobile captain. He got me like 8 or 9 points, but then I didn't switch the captaincy to Neymar, and in the end he went berserk, got a hat-trick, and I would have gained quite a lot of points if I had captained the Brazilians. So there's always, the kind of you miss all the shots that you don't take and all of that, but it depends. A lot of it is down to luck, and you just have to back your gut, really, in most of these cases. Lewandowski and Salah are worth switching the captaincy for, but just try to be realistic and aware that once you get closer to the end of the match day, you probably should be a bit more cautious in terms of the captaincy. And the same can be said about substitutions. For those of you who aren't aware, try to place those players on your bench who are playing on the last day or two and bring them on for the players that have already played, those that blank or don't do too well, and then you have more opportunities to maximise your points rather than relying on auto subs. But right now I've got Ulrich in goal, double Bayern defence and double City with Trent. Of course, Rudiger will probably come in at some point depending on who blanks in this team. Probably Alvarez. I'm very happy with the midfield balance, and apart from Alvarez, I think the rest is looking really good, and I've got enough structure to kind of move in and move out of a certain player. So Mahrez could become Foden, and that gives me enough money to move Sane on to someone more expensive. I think the forwards I'd probably stick with. Despite how good Mbappe is, and I'd love to have him, I don't think it warrants downgrading other players because I already want to make a downgrade to facilitate another move. So I think it would just weaken my bench and my squad overall, and some players will be knocked out. I think the main ones that are going to be knocked out in this team is Danjuma or Vlahovic, and you'd probably expect it to be Danjuma. The rest, you could argue, will go through, but keep an eye on Benfica against Ajax. That could be a big shock, and Benfica showed their quality in the first leg. I think with the rest, you would expect them to go through. You never know with Bayern Munich. They haven't been that great this season. City are pretty much already through. Liverpool are probably going to go through. But it's football. You can never predict these things. And I might be in a position heading into Matchday 9 where a lot of my players are already eliminated. But happy with this team. I explained my captaincy choices. Let me know what you think of them. And also, who are you going for in terms of the captaincy? Which transfers are you making? Leave them down in the comment section below. And now I'm going to be showing you my transfer plans, and I'm still not quite settled on what I'm going to do just yet. As things stand, I'm looking to move Pasveer on to Edouard Mendy, but I would need 1.1 million elsewhere in order to fund that move. And what I'm thinking about is downgrading Sula to Vesaleko. Now, I'm going to explain the kind of pros and cons of these moves. So I get a really good ball recoverer and budget defender in Vesaleko. Atletico could go through, but then the big con there is that tie lies right down in the balance, and I'd also expect Sula to get a decent return in the home game against Salzburg, and he just scored in his last Bundesliga game. That doesn't mean he's now going to suddenly score in this one, but he's got goal threat, he's got really good ball recoveries too, so that is something I'm not sure about. Now, the pros of getting Mendy is that he's a kind of set and forget goalkeeper so long as he remains in the competition, and I back Chelsea defence to even keep a clean sheet against Lille, and also beyond, he should start all of the games. But then the downside is that I'm keeping Ulrich, who is just more of a short-term option anyway, so he could feature in the quarterfinals if Bayern make it that far. But let's say we get to the semi-final stage and Neuer could be back by then I would probably have to make a transfer there unless I just stick with one goalkeeper. But what if Mendy gets knocked out by that stage? So that's already quite a few problems. Pasveer is a better long-term option than Ulrich, but then you compare both of them in Matchday 8, you probably would rather have Ulrich. You would back Bayern Munich for the clean sheet more so than Ajax, who are quite similarly matched to Benfica, at least what they've shown so far in the first leg. You'd still expect Ajax to go through, and they have had a very good defence all season, but you'd still expect Bayern to be slightly better defensively. But let me know what you think. And then what do I do in my third transfer? I'll be honest, I've kind of tinkered with different things, but I don't want to move one striker to another. I could possibly downgrade and get more money there in order to facilitate other moves and possibly save that Sula to Vesaleko transfer, but I'm just not really feeling it, and I don't want to get rid of Laporte and Cancelo. I expect both of them to start, especially in the case of Aymeric Laporte. As for Trent Alexander-Arnold, I think he's a season keeper so long as he remains in the competition. Same goes for Rudiger. I would like Christensen or Reece James, but I think with Mendy and Rudiger, that's already enough, and I wouldn't look to triple up on any team defensively right now, and Chelsea are facing Lille away, so there is the possibility of the French club scoring one goal. So there's quite a lot to think about, but once again, I encourage all of you to kind of leave your thoughts down on which transfers I should make or not. Without making any transfers, I would have 0.3 million left in the bank, and I would have Pasveer instead of Mendy and Sula instead of Vesaleko, but I'm quite well set up, and I could actually go through this round without making a transfer. But if we get any news of injuries or anything like that over the next few days, then I would make some changes accordingly. But right now, I'm quite happy and settled with things as they are, and I don't really regret any of the decisions I've made, other than not really having a solid goalkeeper like Edouard Mendy, but even then, that would have required a downgrade elsewhere. But thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. All the very best of luck for Matchday 8. Enjoy the Champions League football and also with FPL. And if you are having maybe a bad time in any of those games, trust me, just enjoy it. Have fun, see kind of the mistakes you've made, but also ultimately realize that a lot of this can be down to luck. So do not beat yourself up about it. And some decisions are in your control, but others, you have nothing to do with it. And FPL sometimes and UCL Fantasy is about rolling the dice and seeing where you land. Consider looking at the playlist of FPL and UCL Fantasy on the channel, and also follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM. We're almost at 1k followers on both of them, so thank you very much for all the support. And also there's a Discord server with over 100 of you there, so thank you very much. There's also the league, both for UCL Fantasy and FPL, so just check on any of those videos and you'll see it in the description below. And you can also become a Patreon or channel member member, support the channel even further, and you'll have a long list of perks for each tier. And right now, if you sign up to any single membership tier, you have exclusive early access to all my videos. So consider subscribing and joining the channel memberships. It'd be much appreciated. But take care, enjoy the football, and I'll see you next time.